Welcome to Brock Lesnar Trivia, Facts and Opinions. I'm Joel Curtis from the 280 Times and here we go. Question 1. What is Brock Lesnar's middle name? Edward, Beast, Vincent, or Phil? Brock's middle name is Edward. I wonder how many people survived, pointing out that his initials spelt Bell. Where was Brock Lesnar born? Was it in Webster, South Dakota? Toronto, Ontario? Lake Athabasca, Saskatchewan? Or was it Minneapolis, Minnesota? Brock was born in Webster, South Dakota. In which developmental territory did Brock Lesnar train before being called up to the main WWE roster? OVW, Ohio Valley Wrestling. Fact. Originally, Brock wanted to blow up for a living, but the military felt it would be too dangerous giving him explosives. Their excuse was something about him being colorblind. Red wire, green wire, what's the difference? What year did Brock Lesnar originally debut on the main WWE roster? Brock was called up in 2002. Who did Brock defeat to win his first WWE Championship? Was it Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Undertaker, The Rock, or was it Kurt Angle? It was the jabroni beating, pie eating, soon to be movie making, enjoy him while he's here cause supplies are limited, great one, The Rock. To whom did he lose his first WWE Championship? Was it to The Big Show, Eddie Guerrero, Kurt Angle, or The Undertaker? His first WWE title loss was to The Big Show. With a little help from this guy. I'm glad they've made up. Brock and Paul are one of the great duos in the history of wrestling. Fact. In his senior year at high school, Brock placed third in the state wrestling championships. What was Brock Lesnar's overall record from college wrestling? (106 wins, 5 losses). Which fellow future WWE superstar was Brock's roommate in college? Was it Randy Orton, Charlie Haas, Daniel Bryan, or Shelton Benjamin? The gold standard, Shelton Benjamin was Brock's college roommate. Fact. Prior to joining the main roster, Brock and Shelton teamed up in OVW to win the OVW tag titles 3 times. What was the name of the tag team? Was it the Minnesota Stretching Crew, the Minnesota Vikings, the Minnesota Grinders, or was it the world's greatest tag team? Brock and Shelton's tag team name in OVW was the Minnesota Stretching Crew. How many WrestleManias did Brock compete in during his first run in the WWE? 2. Which high-risk move did Brock fail to properly execute at WrestleMania 19? The shooting star press. Opinion. If anyone else had failed that move and landed the way he did, I have zero doubt that they would have paralyzed themselves. I believe that, to such a degree that I almost called this a fact. It was, in my opinion, only a mix of luck and the extreme physical conditioning that Lesnar was in, that protected his neck to where he escaped with only a concussion. Not that concussions are to be taken lightly. Who was Brock's final match in WWE with, during his original 2000s run? Bill Goldberg. Who did Brock Lesnar lose his final WWE title of his original run to, prior to his 2004 departure from WWE? The legendary Eddie Guerrero. What sport did Brock take up first, following his departure from WWE? Was it baseball, hockey, golf, or football? It was football. Fact. Brock Lesnar was signed by the Minnesota Vikings to be a defensive tackle for the 2004 season, with less than 4 months of dedicated training after leaving WWE. Prior to the start of the season, however, Lesnar would be reassigned to the Vikings' sister team for Europe, which Lesnar rejected, citing a desire to stay in America with his growing family. Who is Brock Lesnar's wife? Former WWE diva, Sable, aka Rena Mero. Who was Brock Lesnar's first MMA match against? Was it Frank Mir, Randy Couture, Min Soo Kim, or Heath Herring? Min Soo Kim was victim number 1. Who was Lesnar's first UFC match against? Was it Frank Mir, Bobby Lashley, Mark Coleman, or Heath Herring? Lesnar's first UFC match was against Frank Mir. Fact. Following his controversial loss to Frank Mir, Lesnar would file a restraining order against the referee to prevent him from being a part of any future match that Lesnar would compete in. Opinion. Although Lesnar did tap, that ref may as well have been wearing a Frank Mir t-shirt. Cause no one in the history of MMA has ever been pulled off a fellow fighter while in dominate position, and deducted a point without warning, for what was clearly an accidental strike that was caused by the deliberate actions to receive said strike by the victim. How many rounds did it take for Brock to defeat Randy Couture for the UFC Heavyweight Championship of the World? Was it 1 round, 2 rounds, 3, or 4 rounds? It was in the 2nd round that Brock put away the hopes of David defeating Goliath. Fact. Brock never lost an MMA match, if he made it past the 1st round. In which round has Lesnar won the majority of his MMA fights? Was it the 1st, the 2nd, the 3rd, or the 4th round? The 2nd round is where Lesnar scored the most victories. Following Lesnar's heavyweight title loss, to which fighter did The Undertaker stop him at cageside and challenge him to a return to wrestling? Cain Velasquez. After his loss to this UFC heavyweight, Lesnar announced his first retirement from the sport of mixed martial arts. Was it Frank Mir, Cain Velasquez, Shane Carwin, or Alistair Overeem? It was the Reem, Alistair. Fact: Overeem did not fully comply with the NCAA-ordered drug testing, leading up to his bout with Lesnar, which took place on December 30, 2011. Due to his accidental non-compliance, he was granted a conditional license, and the match with Lesnar went forward. One of the conditions in his conditional license was that Overeem would submit 2 properly administered drug tests within 6 months following the Lesnar fight. 4 months later, in April of 2012, Overeem was revealed to have tested positive. Very positive. And this isn't the slight traces, unknown source, or possible contamination type of positive test that ironically, Lesnar himself would deal with later on. Overeem tested positive for anabolic steroids at a ratio of 14:1 testosterone to epitestosterone. Essentially, he was glowing in the dark. Opinion: Lesnar's MMA record is not reflective of his true ability. With, in my opinion, only one legitimate loss in MMA to Cain Velasquez, Lesnar's true MMA record should, if justice was served, stand at 6 wins, 1 loss and 2 no contests. Who was Brock Lesnar's first feud with, when he returned to the WWE? Was it John Cena, Triple H, CM Punk, or was it with The Undertaker? On his first night back in about 7 years, Lesnar gave the doctor of thugonomics a new diagnosis. Now more dangerous than ever, and to reflect his time in MMA, Lesnar added wishbone-breaking joint lock to his WWE finishing arsenal. The Kimura lock. How many times did Brock break Triple H's arm? Twice. Who was Brock Lesnar's opponent when he screamed "Suplex City" for the first time? Roman Reigns. How many times has The Undertaker defeated Brock Lesnar in pay-per-view matches? Never. Once. Twice. Or was it thrice? Out of all the matches that Lesnar and Taker were in, The Undertaker has thus far only managed to defeat Brock 1 time on pay-per-view. In what would likely be his final match in the UFC, during a special, one-off return at UFC 200, who was Brock Lesnar's opponent? Mark Hunt. What unique WrestleMania distinction does Brock have with the Shield? Brock is the only person to wrestle all 3 members of the Shield in one-on-one matches at WrestleMania. Which WWE commentator did Brock hit with the F5 so hard, it blew the commentator's shoes off? Michael Cole. Thank you all so much for watching. As always, we would love to hear your thoughts about this episode in the comments. And your support, by way of hitting that like button, sharing this with your friends, or subscribing if you haven't already, would be greatly appreciated. For the 280 Times Trivia channel, I'm Joel Curtis.